So, Deadlock is in a bit of a rough spot at the moment. A lot of content creators and other players are just kind of burning out from the game due to the recent changes that Yoshi has done, and today I want to talk about why the current state of the game feels particularly bad to a lot of veteran players, because, well, changes happen all the time in Deadlock. Characters get buffed and nerfed, new features get added, the map gets changed, and while you may agree or disagree with those changes, none of them really cause the same level of burnout that a lot of people, including myself, are experiencing right now. Now, I know it might sound like I'm setting up to create another video complaining about the urn, but I'm not actually here today to analyze the shortcomings of the current urn and how it's impacting the game. Instead, I want to discuss why this particular rework has caused so much grief compared to other reworks and other changes that they have made throughout the game. And in a nutshell, it has to do with the fact that gamers, like most people, are creatures of habit, right? We don't really like change, and we don't like changes being forced upon us. And the bigger the change and the more in your face the change is, usually the worse the reception is to it, unless that change objectively makes your quality of life better. Now, of course, that's not to say that every single change is bad and that gamers will hate every single change, because that's simply not true, and Deadlock has shown how to make great changes in the past. The Old Gods New Blood update was absolutely fantastic. It added a whole bunch of new heroes, it revitalized the patrons, and in general it was a fantastically received update, even if, you didn't like some of the characters that were released in that update. And the reason why all these changes were so good is because, well, if you look at the patrons, they just made them better. Objectively, they are better in every single way. The art is better, the gameplay is better, it feels better to play around. And the new characters, well, if you like them, great. If you don't like them, nobody is forcing you to play them, and you can also ban them if you really don't like them. And even if they're not banned, they're not going to appear in every single match, so you can have a break from these features that you hate. But what we're witnessing here with the urn is what happens when a change doesn't miss the mark, and it's also non-negotiable. It is not optional, it is mandatory. You have to deal with the urn in every single game, because it is a permanent map objective. At 12 minutes, the urn spawns, and no matter what, you have to drop everything and either decide, hey, do I want to push the urn, help with the urn fight, or do I want to try and split push a walker, which is probably better for your sanity? We've basically entered a rocky part of the early access where the devs have decided to rework a feature that they deemed was inadequate. And in doing so, they have done some iterations to try and make it feel better to play around, but, for one reason or another, those iterations have not been particularly pleasant, and they've been tinkering with this thing for a long time now, well over a month. And this current iteration of the urn in particular has not seen major changes in multiple weeks, and this has led to the game feeling pretty bad. It's stagnant, and we've just kind of been left with a change that a lot of people tend to not really like, including myself, because it makes games more snowballing. And it doesn't really matter what you do, you cannot avoid this snowballiness. It doesn't matter if you're playing your favorite character or a character you've never played before, the outcome of the match is pretty much just dictated by whoever's up at the first 10 minutes. And that is not really a fun way to play the game for a lot of people. This whole snowballiness, this stomp block, is not fun. And as a real quick side tangent, if you're out of the loop on why that is, it's because the urn now spawns later, at 12 minutes. And that gives the team that's ahead 2 extra minutes to do whatever they want. And then they get to pick up the urn. And the urn is usually not a comeback urn on the very first urn, because it requires an extra amount of souls to be behind for it to finally flip over into comeback on the first urn cycle. And so, the team that's ahead gets to fight the urn with just a blatant abject advantage. If they win that fight, then, obviously the urn doesn't give as many souls as it used to, but that still just compounds and adds on to their lead. And if they lose the urn fight, well, the team that's behind usually still ends up taking some casualties as a result, so it doesn't end up really helping them as much as it should. And if the team that's behind decides to contest the urn, dies trying, and loses the urn, then the lead just becomes so big. And then the next comeback urn doesn't spawn until 6 minutes later at the 18-minute mark. That is 3 minutes later than the previous comeback urn would have spawned with the old urn rework, because they made the time take longer. And so, well, that just lets the enemies have so much time to do whatever they want, and by that point in the game, even if it is a comeback urn, they still have to fight on neutral territory, which usually ends up favoring the team that's ahead, because especially if they have big AoE ults, they are just pound for pound stronger and will win that fight. And even if the team that's behind wins that fight, again, they usually take some casualties in the process, so it doesn't provide as much of an advantage as you would expect. And so it just leads to what I call stomp block. Games are really stompy right now, and it has everything to do with the urn. But let's get back to the idea of reworking the urn. Why are we doing this in the first place, and how could they have done this better? So the original reason why the urn was reworked is because they wanted to make it a more engaging objective, and that is an absolutely fair goal. And of course, we signed up to play an early access game, so you know, it's no surprise that we're being used as test dummies right now to try and test this new objective idea and make it as good as it can be. There is nothing wrong with that. But, of course, they missed the mark completely on the first iteration of the urn. Do you guys remember the melee urn? That was a couple of weeks ago now. It already feels like ancient history, and it feels like one of those wacky things that happened that's like, why did they ever think that would work? And, well, they quickly iterated on that and created this new version of the urn, but it was incomplete. Obviously, there are still some very major issues with the urn regarding the actual base functionality of it. For example, the audio cues and the visual cues are not present enough, not suitable for when you're, across the map, not actively delivering the urn. Now sure, you can still tell if the urn is being contested by, paying close attention to your minimap, and paying close attention to the very tiny widget at the top of your screen that tells you if the urn is being turned in. But otherwise, there's no audio cue, and, even any turn is people are kind of just left in the dark. Sometimes it'll happen that someone turns in the urn and everyone's just like, whoa, wait, the urn was under contest? What? Because the cues just aren't suitable enough. And also, I would argue the circle is just absolutely terrible. It doesn't fit naturally with the terrain, it feels super restricting, and it's just not fun to fight around. So there are these blatant issues, but then, instead of continuing to quickly iterate on these changes, the devs have decided to just let it be. Let it sit for a couple of weeks now. I genuinely thought we would get a small update, Friday, last week, to try and address the urn and make it better. We did not get that. As of right now, we still do not have such a patch. And so, it's just left us in a state where we are forced to deal with this rework that did not hit the mark, and, we kind of just have silence now. Like, they haven't done enough to try and improve it. We did get an update, a couple of weeks ago that did, two things that were really tiny and didn't really address the core issues of the urn. So, it's been a long time now dealing with this new system that is fundamentally flawed. And again, there's no way around it. So it just leads to the feeling of burnout being exacerbated and being made way stronger than normal, because you literally can't play the game without dealing with this system unless you want to go play Street Brawl, but Street Brawl gets really repetitive after a while. Now, notably, they have reworked things in the past that have been significantly more successful than the Spirit Urn, and the closest parallel would be what they did to the Rejuvenator last summer. They reworked the Rejuvenator, and similar to the urn, they completely missed the mark on the first Rejuvenator rework, but they were much quicker to iterate on it overall, and we ended up with a system that most players tend to like. I have my small gripes with it. I think just for posterity, you should actually be able to see on the scoreboard when you kill someone with a Rejuvenator, even if it doesn't give you souls, but otherwise, the new Rejuvenator works much better than the previous Rejuve. They were much faster about iterating on community feedback, and we didn't really have this dead period where we've had a few weeks now where the urn just hasn't been changed. That didn't happen with the old Rejuve, and so it was a much quicker, much better process, and it left us with an upgraded Rejuve that was better for all intents and purposes. And if we want to go back even further, well, we can take a look at the map rework that switched from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes. There was a little bit of controversy around it, as some people liked solo lanes, but for the most part people felt it was an upgrade to the game, and the new map genuinely is a lot better than the old map for the purposes of bouncing around, fighting people. It's great. And so because that was a rework, that was just generally an upgrade, they hit the mark the first time, that rework did not cause the same feelings of burnout in people, obviously. Now, it is hard to hit the mark the first time or even the second time with a rework, and I totally understand that. But it's really this period of silence that has caused the biggest problem, because you can make mistakes, but if you don't iterate and try and fix those mistakes quickly, then it leads to the exact situation we have now. And it doesn't help that we are now, 6 months out from the last major content update, and multiple months out from the last major balance patch. So, on top of the urn, the game's just feeling a little bit stale, especially with the current meta that we're in regarding champions or heroes, which is also exacerbated by the urn, because some heroes are genuinely just better at urn fights than others. If you have big AoE, if you have that big dynamo ult, then you're going to be a lot better off than if you've got, I don't know, haze. So, yeah, all of that has led to people like me feeling burnt out with the current state of the game. And it really is just early access growing pains at the end of the day, because they are trying to do bold new things to put the game in the best state it can be in before they officially launch the game. And yeah, again, that's all well and good, but I just wish they had been a little bit better at quickly trying to, continue to improve and make changes rather than letting it stagnate as it's done. Because yeah, I don't know how it is at low elo, but at high elo, it's just stomp block. Games rarely flip. Games are usually decided by the first 10 minutes of the game, and that's not a game I enjoy. So, yeah, it just feels like, in a sense, an older, superior version of Deadlock has been ripped away from me, and I can't really play that anymore, and so it's led to me not wanting to play as much Deadlock recently, and that's why I've kind of had a content drought on the channel. Now, hopefully we'll get an update soon. I have no doubt, I still have full faith that we will have a superior version of the urn in a month's time. Or maybe 2 months' time if they continue to be really slow about working on it. But, yeah, we will be in a better place, but there are just going to be some growing pains with any early access game, and that's the period of time we're currently in. So, it is unfortunate. I am enjoying the game much less than I was around the old God's New Blood update, but I still have a lot of confidence at the end of the day, but in the meantime, I didn't expect my break to last this long. I really did think we were going to get an update sooner than that, but in the meantime, I shall continue to take things easy until we get, some actual meaty content that we can sink our teeth into and have some fun with once again. But anyways, let me know what you think about this in the comments section down below. Do you agree with my analysis as to why more people are becoming burnt out with this specific change? I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would love to hear if you agree that the urn is still a problem, or if you've become much more used to it and you enjoy it, because, well, frankly, I'm still not enjoying the dynamics of the current meta, so I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority here. Maybe the community opinion has evolved past me. We'll see. But, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.